Welcome to Haunting Tales After Dark. I've always been drawn to the wilderness, the untamed beauty, the sense of freedom it offers. But one camping trip changed everything for me, leaving me with a chilling tale that still haunts my dreams to this day. This is the true story of my encounter with the unknown deep in the heart of the wilderness. It was a crisp autumn weekend when my friends and I decided to venture into the remote wilderness for a camping trip. We were seasoned outdoorsmen, or so we thought, armed with our tents, supplies, and a sense of adventure. Little did we know, the wilderness had plans for us that went beyond our wildest imaginations. As we ventured deeper into the woods, the dense canopy above blocked out the sunlight, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance around us. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, and the only sounds were the rustling of leaves and the occasional chirping of birds. It was the perfect setting for an adventure, or so we thought. We found a clearing near a babbling brook and set up camp, the crackling of the fire providing a comforting warmth against the encroaching chill of the night. We laughed and joked, swapping stories beneath the starry sky, oblivious to the darkness that lurked just beyond the reach of our campfire's glow. As night fell, a sense of unease settled over our camp like a heavy blanket. The woods seemed to come alive with strange noises, branches creaking in the wind, animals rustling in the underbrush. But it was the howling that sent shivers down our spines, a mournful sound that seemed to echo through the trees, chilling us to the bone. At first, we tried to brush it off as nothing more than a trick of the wind, but as the howling grew louder and more persistent, we knew there was something out there in the darkness, something that did not belong in this world. I remember the fear that gripped my heart as the howling intensified, its eerie wail sending a primal chill down my spine. It was as though the very woods themselves were warning us of an unseen danger, urging us to flee before it was too late. But we were foolish, too stubborn to heed the warnings of the wilderness. We huddled together by the dying fire, clutching our makeshift weapons as though they could protect us from whatever lurked in the darkness. And then it happened. Out of the shadows emerged a figure, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. It moved with an unnatural grace, its movements fluid and silent as it prowled around the edges of our camp, watching us with a predatory gaze. I remember the fear that gripped my heart as I watched the figure draw closer, its features obscured by the darkness. It was like something out of a nightmare, a creature born from the darkest depths of the wilderness. As it drew closer, the howling grew louder, filling the air with its mournful sound. It was as though the creature was calling out to its kin, summoning them to our camp with its chilling cry. With a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I knew we had to leave, to flee into the safety of the night before it was too late. But as we scrambled to gather our belongings, the figure disappeared back into the darkness, leaving us alone with the howling of the wilderness. We fled into the night, our hearts pounding in our chests as we raced through the darkness, the howling growing fainter with each step we took. And as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, we emerged from the wilderness, shaken but alive, our minds haunted by the chilling encounter we had just survived. To this day, I cannot shake the feeling that we were not alone in those woods, that something sinister still lurks in the darkness, waiting for its next unsuspecting victim. And as I lie awake at night, listening to the howling of the wind, I can't help but wonder if the creature we encountered that night is still out there, prowling the wilderness, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. I've always had a deep connection with nature, drawn to its raw beauty and untamed wilderness. So when my friends suggested a camping trip deep into the heart of the forest, I eagerly agreed. Little did I know, that decision would lead to a terrifying encounter that still haunts me to this day. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when we arrived at the trailhead, our backpacks filled with supplies and our spirits high with anticipation. The forest stretched out before us, a sea of green and gold, beckoning us to explore its secrets. We followed the winding trail deeper into the woods, the trees towering overhead like ancient sentinels, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. As night began to fall, we found a suitable clearing to set up camp. The air was cool and fragrant, filled with the scent of pine and earth. We quickly got to work pitching our tents and starting a fire, the crackling flames casting dancing shadows on the forest floor. As darkness descended, the forest came alive with mysterious sounds: the rustle of leaves, the hoot of an owl, the distant howl of a coyote. But we were undeterred, lost in the warmth of a fire and the camaraderie of good friends. As the night wore on, however, a sense of unease began to creep over me. It started as a feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes peering out from the darkness. I brushed it off as jitters, blaming my overactive imagination. But then the shadows began to move. At first, it was subtle, a flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye, a shifting of darkness among the trees. I tried to ignore it, to focus on the conversation and laughter of my friends, but the feeling of dread continued to gnaw at me. And then, without warning, the forest fell silent. The crackling of the fire died away, replaced by an eerie stillness that seemed to suffuse the air like a thick fog. My heart pounded in my chest as I glanced nervously around the camp, searching for any sign of movement in the darkness. That's when I saw them, the shadows, creeping closer, their forms indistinct and shifting. They moved with a sinister grace, slithering through the underbrush like serpents in the night. I tried to cry out a warning to my friends, but my voice caught in my throat. They too had noticed the encroaching darkness, their faces pale with fear as they watched the shadows draw nearer. And then they were upon us. The shadows swarmed into the camp, enveloping us in their cold embrace. I could feel their icy touch against my skin, sending shivers down my spine. My friends and I huddled together, our backs against the fire, our makeshift weapons trembling in our hands. But it was no use. The shadows were everywhere, surrounding us, suffocating us with their malevolent presence. And then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, the shadows retreated, melting back into the darkness from whence they came. We were left shaken and bewildered, our minds reeling from the encounter. We wasted no time in packing up our camp and fleeing into the night, desperate to escape the haunting shadows that lurked in the wilderness. As we stumbled back along the trail, the darkness seemed to press in around us, as though the forest itself was alive with unseen eyes watching our every move. When we finally emerged from the wilderness, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon, we breathed a sigh of relief. But deep down, we knew that the shadows would always linger in the corners of our minds, a reminder of the terrifying night we spent in the wild. To this day, I cannot explain what we encountered in those woods, whether it was a trick of the light or something more sinister. But one thing is for certain: the wilderness holds secrets that are best left undisturbed, lurking in the shadows, waiting to be discovered by those foolish enough to venture into its depths. This story I'm about to share with you still sends shivers down my spine every time I recall that chilling night deep in the heart of Whispering Woods. It was a camping trip with my closest friends, an adventure we thought would be filled with laughter and camaraderie, but it turned into a nightmare we'll never forget. We set out on a crisp autumn day, the leaves crunching beneath our boots as we ventured deeper into the woods. The air was alive with the sounds of nature, and the scent of pine filled our nostrils, invigorating us with the promise of adventure. As evening fell, we pitched our tents in a small clearing, surrounded by towering trees that seemed to whisper secrets to one another in the gentle breeze. We built a roaring fire, its warmth warding off the encroaching darkness, or so we thought. As night descended, a sense of unease settled over our camp. Strange noises echoed through the trees, and shadows danced on the periphery of our vision. We laughed nervously, dismissing our fears as mere figments of our imagination. But then the whispers began. At first, they were barely audible, just a faint murmur on the edge of hearing. We joked about ghosts and spirits, trying to lighten the mood, but the whispers grew louder and more insistent, filling the air with their sinister presence. I remember the fear that gripped my heart as the whispers surrounded us, their words unintelligible, but filled with a sense of foreboding. It was as though the very woods themselves were speaking to us, warning us of an unseen danger lurking in the darkness. And then it happened. One of my friends, let's call him Jake, claimed he saw something moving among the trees. He described it as a shadowy figure, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. We laughed it off as a trick of the firelight, but deep down, I think we all knew there was something out there, watching us from the shadows. As the night wore on, the whispers grew louder, their words becoming clearer and more menacing. They spoke of death and despair, of souls lost to the darkness of the woods, and with each passing moment, the feeling of dread that hung over our camp grew stronger. In the pale light of dawn, we packed up our gear and fled the woods, eager to escape the malevolent presence that lurked within. But even now, years later, I can't shake the feeling that we were not alone that night in Whispering Woods, that something sinister still waits among the trees, biding its time until it can claim its next victim. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe.